All right, here we go. This one's a short one. We're going to talk about system.out.print. Not system.out.println, system.out.print. And we'll kind of use it to count backwards. So Java actually defines two different methods or commands that will print data to the console. We've been using print line. This is an L. Print ln is print line, but there's also print that exists. The difference between these is subtle, but it's useful, especially when we start working with loops, which is what this whole unit is about. When print line is called, the values and variables within the parentheses are printed to the console, okay, followed by a new line character, which is what causes the next input to appear on the next line. For instance, if we do system.out.println on hello, comma, right, well, that's going to print hello, comma, and then a new line. So whenever the next thing gets printed to the console, in this case world, it appears on the next line. Now, that one is also a print ln, a print line. So anything else that we print is going to be beneath world. So we're printing what is there and then causing a new line. Print simply prints the values and variables inside the parentheses without creating a new line afterwards. Let's look at the difference. Notice here I have print, not print ln. I'm going to print hello, comma, space, right? So it does that. And then I'm going to print world, exclamation mark. Well, because this was just a normal print, I printed that off and I did not make a new line, which means the subsequent things that get printed, such as this print where we print off world, appear on the same line as what I just had. And this one's not a print line, and so anything else that I print is actually going to appear right here behind world. This subtle difference is a lot less subtle when used inside the body of a loop. So let's consider a loop. Here I have integer I starting at 0, and we're going to do 4 iterations. All right, we'll say while I is less than 4, I'm going to just print off I, whatever it is, using print line. Well, we're going to print the current value, which initially is 0, so we see that. And then a new line gets created. So on the next iteration, when I come back through and I is now 1, we'll print it off, followed by a new line. 2, followed by a new line. 3, followed by a new line. Okay, so I'm printing 1 character per line. Very subtle if I just get rid of the ln, exact same code, but we're just doing print, then I end up getting the digits all right next to each other. The new line is not being created afterwards, so any subsequent thing appears on the same line. This is sometimes what you want, okay? Such as when we try to count backwards. We're going to write a program, count backwards, that asks the user for an integer x, and then prints all the values in the range x to 1 on one line, separating by ... space, right? So an example of this is if the user entered 7, we're going to do 7, 6, 5, and we're going to count down. It's a countdown, count backwards, something like that. Let's get started. I am in IntelliJ. I'm going to make a new project by going to File, New, Project. I'm going to go Next, Next. And I'm already in my Principles folder, so I'm going to create this thing here. We're going to call it Count Backwards. Countdown is also, I think, really acceptable here. I'm going to expand my project folder, right-click on the SRC, and make a new Java class, which I'm going to call Count Backwards. Let's plug in our main method with PSVM. And I'm going to implement scanner because ultimately we need x, we need the integer that we're starting from. So I'm going to skip to step 2 of scanner, where I start to type in scanner. We use the IntelliSense to import and finish out that word. So we have scanner. I'm going to call it input. That's a new scanner that reads from system.out. Step 3, I need to prompt the user. So before I do so, why don't we tell them what the program does? I'm going to use a system.out.print line, right? Sout does the print line. So what we're going to see is a statement here inside the parentheses, followed by a new line. This program what are we saying here? prints all the values in the range x comma 1 followed by dot 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 space. And I used single quotes here because the double quotes, more on that later. This program prints all the values in the range x comma 1 followed by dot 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 dot. Right? I mean, I guess it's not exactly clear. X could be negative. Let's just roll with it. All right, so I'm going to now use the system.out.print in order to get the input from the user. Now, this is going to be very subtle, but I'm going to ask, please enter a value for X. Okay. Now, we've been using print lines here and not having any issues, but you might have seen me do like a colon and a space, and it thought that it was kind of awkward. You know, this guy just randomly throwing out colons and spaces here. What's the whole point? The whole point was in preparation for this, because what I really like to do is use print, because whenever the user actually enters a value, we'll actually see it right next to this line. Let me show you. We're actually going to right-click in free space and tell this to run. Actually, it's not even going to wait for us. Let's go into step 4. Let's actually capture that. I'm going to create integer x. This can be input.nextInt. Okay, all I've done is implement scanner. We're getting input from the user, and we're going to save it into x. I'm going to tell this thing to run. This program prints all the values in the range x comma blah 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 blah. I actually could make this a print if I wanted to, and all of this would show up on the same line. You don't even have to use multiple SOPs. You could just use like the little addition operator to kind of concatenate these strings together. Do need an extra little space there. So this program prints all the values in the range x comma 1 followed by dot 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 dot. Please enter a value for x. Now here is the big difference between print and print line in this context, right? Previously, whenever it's waiting for us to enter a value, but previously using print line, we would have done this and made a new line, so whenever the user actually inputs their value, it appears beneath the text. With this, it's going to appear beside it. It is so subtle, I know, but I like it. Okay, so I've implemented scanner. We've gotten a value for x from the user. It's saved in there. I'm ready to start counting backwards. Okay, so I actually already have x. I'm just going to take x and kind of just modify it over the life of the loop, but we're ready for that loop. Right, take a look. So let's say that x is 7. We're going to go 7, and then I'm going to decrement x, so it's 6, 5, 4. When do we stop? What's our condition? We will keep going as long as while x is greater than 0. Another way you could express that is while x is greater than or equal to 1. Those are the exact same thing. So while x is greater than 0, what I'm going to do is print the current value of x followed by the dot 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 space. Okay, the only difference here is instead of a print line, we're going to use a print. Now, there's probably a shortcut here in IntelliJ in order to get just a print. I still find the fastest way to get it is just stick with your normal sout, your s out, and then just delete the ln. That's what I always do. So we're going to print the current value, in this case is x, along with that dot 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 space. After I do this, right, I've just printed the current value for x. I want to decrement x so that on the next iteration, right, we're printing a smaller value, something like 6, 5, 4. Okay, that's also going to cause us to approach our condition, right? If I didn't decrement x, if I didn't do this line at all, we would just go infinitely. We would have an infinite loop. Let's try this out. blah, 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 blah. I'm going to do 7. Oh, that's looking pretty good. Let's try it again with a different value. Awesome. Kind of interesting. What happens if we do 0? Well, nothing, right? The user input 0. We're saving 0 into x. We're going to ask, is 0 greater than 0? No, this is false right away. And that's possible. It's possible that your loop is false right away. We would skip the body, nothing gets printed, and we would go on. A reminder that this x minus minus is the same thing as saying x is equal to x minus 1, which is the same thing as x minus equals 1. Okay, I don't really have anything else for you. That's the difference between print and print line, and as you can see, it's super useful inside of loops. I'll see you in the next one.